So hey everybody, we're back. We're doing this is a bit of heavy podcast day. Shout out to Gonzalo, which is why I'm probably in the same clothes. But Steve Johnson is here in town, and we said, you know what? While you're here, why don't you come by and let's talk about marketing and SaaS and whatever else you've done. And so I'm super excited to talk to you because every time I've known of you, and then we worked at the same company together, but didn't really know each other then. And just through osmosis, have learned a bunch of things from you over the years. So I want to try to unpack a couple of those lessons.
Absolutely.
So how do you describe who you are and what you do?
That's a good question.
You're always kind of an operating guy, right?
An operating guy. You know, I look at solving real problems.
Yeah.
You know, so I love that kind of stuff. To something that's real. I also am purpose driven, so I like to have something that's got meaning to me.
Yep. So let's rewind, like back from Constant Contact, Hootsuite, Vidyard. Now, give me the last 10 years.
Sure. So we ran across each other at
Constant
Contact.
Yep.
Then I came in when it was zero at Hootsuite, employee 27, just when we started monetizing it.
Okay.
So Vancouver, and so did that 5 years. We went from 27 to 1,000 people, grew all around the world, and some great revenue.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so it's now it's public now. It's 150 million. So that was
what
really,
was
really
it when you
run.
Joined?
So it was 300,000 revenue. So basically, just started. I turned it down a couple of times because I wanted to wait and see if somebody wanted to pay for this. So Ryan, great guy, but he pinged me and said, you know, we got this free product. We're going to start monetizing. I'm like,
that was a super interesting era. Yeah. So like how long were you at Constant Contact?
So I was there 2 years.
2 years from
to learn the volume business.
What,
basically
2009 to 2011 would be my guess, because I was there 2011.
Yeah, 2009 to 2011.
And so at that time was like the rise. I think the rise of social media.
Yeah.
Right, because there was a lot of stuff happening at that time. It was like Facebook. You know, Facebook was blowing up.
Yeah.
Instagram was just blowing up. It had just been acquired by Facebook. Twitter was just starting to take off. You know, LinkedIn obviously was a platform. All these other Google Plus was a thing back then.
Oh man!
All these social channels.
We were a premier partner on that.
Right?
And thought this was game changing.
And everybody in the world. And I actually remember being at Constant Contact. There was a social media marketing product for Facebook.
Yeah.
And it used to be based on Facebook pages. You used to be able to basically gate your Facebook page. Remember? Right?
Oh yeah.
It was you could have an offer and say, hey, I'll give you a $2 coupon if you like my Facebook page.
Yep.
Facebook then demolished that. They opened up.
Killed a whole bunch of companies.
It killed it. There was a ton of companies that had just made
a lot of money
apps on social media.
Yeah.
And so my guess is there was during that time, which is like the rise of social, Hootsuite started to blow up because there needed to be some way to manage all these channels, right?
Yeah.
Brand, like I remember at Constant Contact there was 4 or 5 people on the social media team using Hootsuite.
Yeah. Yes, and it was interesting. People thought originally it was a stupid idea. I got told many times that I was making the dumbest career move in my life.
What, leaving Constant Contact?
And I said, but I was an enterprise guy. I wanted to learn the volume business, so Constant Contact was the best at that time, right? Yeah. So learned a ton, and then, to me it was sort of just self-obvious that social media was just yet another communication form, right? So you first do face-to-face, then the mail, then the fax, then email, fax, phone, email, or whatever the order is. And then social media was just the next logical iteration. So I'm like, the world has shifted, and companies, if you thought social media was a fad, then you didn't need Hootsuite.
Right.
If you thought it was real, then are you going to manage it all natively? No.
Right.
So, and we were underfunded at that point. So we had $1.9 million in funding. Couldn't get funding. All the smart money was on Seismic, if you remember Seismic. Yeah. So Mark Benioff, Reid Hoffman, all these guys, they'd raised $20 million to our 1.9. Then as soon as I joined Hootsuite, Twitter bought TweetDeck.
Man, I use TweetDeck. I love TweetDeck.
I thought we were hosed. Yeah. We were like, this is awful. So we were a Twitter tool only.
Right.
And then that's when we added Facebook and started adding these other platforms. Now there's like 150 platforms.
So I want to talk, I think a great focus for this episode would be like lessons from the high volume business. Yeah. So let's unpack some of those. Yeah. But first, like what was the playbook at? Well, I want to talk about all of them. I want to talk about lessons from Vidyard. I want to talk about lessons from Hootsuite, lessons from Constant Contact. But maybe there's kind of some key themes along the way.
Absolutely.
Right? What did you take? What did you take from Constant? What things did you see work really well from Constant Contact that you then took to Hootsuite and said, okay, there's 30 people here. Here's where we're trying to get to. my first 90 days, 3 months, 6 months, I'm going to do what? What did you take from Constant Contact?
So what I took from Constant Contact was definitely the rigor and the data analysis of things that you need from a volume business. So looking at all this paid user acquisition, making sure you're constantly iterating and testing all this kind of stuff. So we did that and leveraged the pro business really, really well. The other thing I took away from Constant Contact was really the freemium, looking at MailChimp. I'm like, the freemium really, really works. So our brand preceded us.
Can you unpack that? Because I think we work there, and so like I don't think most people will know the story, but Constant Contact did not have a freemium email model. Yeah. MailChimp came into the market and basically started to eat a big portion of that by having free. Yeah,
and Ben Chestnut wrote a blog on it. I don't know if it's still up, but I remember reading this before I went to Hootsuite. I'm like, he told this whole story, and basically the whole thing was, that how do you get people into a product, into the business? And they started late in the game. They didn't start with a freemium. Like Hootsuite started with a freemium. They added it later on, and the numbers were it was just a home run.
So did you take freemium? Did you add freemium when you were at Hootsuite?
So Hootsuite, we had free to start with, and then we added pro, then we added enterprise. So those are the three things that we added. So it was, essentially, I think it was roughly 500,000 free users when I joined. When I left, we had 15 million free users. And then the pro product was, we were starting, I remember we were adding like 100 pro per day, and then the weekend it would dip, And after a while, we broke the 500 a day, and it was on the free signups, I should say. And then finally, you get to the point we were signing up 10,000, 15,000.
And how are you growing? How are you growing that? Like other than and maybe the answer is just dump a bunch of money into SEM and paid.
No, so good question. So initially, we didn't have any money. We had $1.9 million, and then we got a $3 million convertible note. That's the untold story of Hootsuite. It was actually a very capital efficient business, because people heard we raised $250 million, but that was years later, and it wasn't all. Most of it didn't go into business. So
you grew. So the growth in the freemium model was not relying on paid. What's the playbook?
So the playbook we looked at and we said, again, I had $5,000 a month in marketing spend. So I was like, what do I do?
That was the budget.
This is the budget. This is the budget. So I'm like, whoa, this included paid user. This included everything. Yeah. So we're like, okay. So you remember the book Flip My Funnel? Mm-hmm. I'm like, all right. We had a lot of raving fans out there that loved our product. So we started a community. Our whole marketing team.
John Jaffe. Yeah.
So we went totally after the whole story was community marketing. We're like, we got to go after this community marketing. So we would start and find all these influencers that liked our product, and that was our vehicle. And we got a bunch of interns that would come in. So in every market we would want to go into, we'd go, okay, we need somebody in Vietnam. We need somebody, and we would get an intern in, and you could actually, it's almost like radio. You could see the community marketer would start working, and you'd start to see the lift in signups.
Huh. From
that market, from that geo. I remember it was just like you could just do it by clockwork. So our
would
strategy.
Would the intern actually be at Hootsuite, or like
we would try to bring him over for like a summer or 3 months,
and they would focus just on that.
Yeah.
And how do you do that from an office digitally? Like how do you drive signups in Vietnam or whatever?
So it's all based on finding who the influencers were in Vietnam.
Oh, so the playbook is, this is amazing. So the playbook is, you guys had a bunch of free users. You found out where the really passionate ones are, and then what do you reach? Did you give them swag and make them feel loved? And
it's actually it's a really fascinating story. Again, we had no money, so we would get these interns. We just pay barely anything we could do to scrape together to pay them. Then we look, okay, so you have 3 things you've got to do as an intern or as an ambassador. We called him an ambassador. You became an ambassador for us, and by the end we had almost 1,200 ambassadors around the world, with 25 paid community marketers. But early days, it was like, didn't have that. So you're an ambassador, let's say, for Vietnam or wherever.
Boston.
Boston. No, we had them for North America, and then we got different regions. Okay. So it would be, all right, who are the influencers in that market?
Yep.
And so Guy Kawasaki was one early on, like he was an influencer. So we were like, so we would start to build a relationship with them. Mm-hmm. So it was like the whole story. You had to be kind of what I called higher. It had to be a holistic story. That was the H. I won't go through all the other ones, but so we would build this relationship, and then they would then start sharing it. So the first would be, get the relationship. The second we called them hoot ups.
Yeah.
So we'd bring people into a little bar venue, and we had no money. We'd just go, we literally would send stickers. It sounds really, really cheesy, but we had these little Hootsuite stickers we'd mail out.
No, like I'm getting
write a note.
This is amazing. Yes.
And people loved it. And then later on, when we had money to start funding it, we would send swag. And beer money. We'd go, or drink money. We'd go, you got to do a Hoot Up.
Yep.
You got to do it once a month to be an ambassador. And then you also have to post socially about this. So the swag would be like an owl mask or something like this.
Yeah.
And you would, so then we had this whole
was there
social channel.
Was there any ask? Was there like, and you have to sign up X people?
No.
Or was there your expectation, like, if we can make these people love us and they have these community events by osmosis, like, people are going to sign up for our product?
Yeah.
And that's what you saw.
It absolutely was. So we toyed around a little bit with trying to get some sort of a ask. Most of these people are volunteers.
Yeah.
So the biggest thing was just simply getting the brand out, because we knew if we could get the free brand going, you know, we would convert X% of them to our pro.
It wasn't like every influencer had some, like, you know, magic affiliate link and you'd track it all down. It was just like, hire people in these segments, go.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
And also they became our amplification. So we had, you know, the Hootsuite Twitter, we called it our Death Star. It became pretty powerful. So we wanted to blast the message out. The ambassadors would actually send out that message.
And those were the days on Twitter where, like, there was, you know, a couple accounts where, like, you know, not everybody was on Twitter yet, and so the people that were kind of on Twitter, like, if you were on Twitter, you're already kind of like the 1% of, like, marketing nerd people, right? And then, like, inside of that, the people that are, like, connected to Hootsuite and using social media tools, that's like a whole different sphere.
Oh yeah. And it went on steroids, you know, like that. I really think the community program, just, you know, because we didn't have the budget. But I remember we used to write on a small whiteboard where the Hoot Ups were. Yeah. You know, it's like during the week you'd see them. By the end, we had a whole cafeteria that would be like 100 feet of whiteboard, where all around the world these Hoot Ups were going. It'd be like multiple a day, all over the place, and that was actually pretty exciting.
That's amazing. Do you think that not having the budget forced that solution?
Yeah, absolutely forced it. It became less critical later on as we started getting budget, and we started spending more and more money on the paid user, because, you know, for every paid user pro that we would get, we'd drag 6 free along, right? And then those 6 free, besides the brand,
from the same company,
from the same spend, from the same spend.
Just from a cost perspective.
Yeah. Right. So it's like not everyone would sign up for a trial, but then those that didn't would sign up for free, and we knew we would monetize a certain percentage of those free. Yeah. And then that also had a chain effect too, that those free people would drink and pull us into enterprise as well.
When I was at, I've been to South by Southwest twice. Yeah. One time I was there.
One time I was
there. There was a hoot, an owl, a big bus.
Outside, man.
A big bus that was an owl. And that was amazing. Everybody was talking about it, getting pictures with it, tweeting it, and that was pretty early in that.
It was really early.
That was 2011.
It's one of our biggest marketing spend when we finally squeezed the money together.
How much did the bus cost?
The bus cost, and I'm trying to remember the actual exact number. It was not as much as you think. We had it configured and built in Austin. Yeah. So we never took it around from there.
But you're probably still under $1 million in ARR at that point. If you had just joined 300,000.
Yeah. We were probably, when we did the bus, we were probably around $1 million ARR.
Bus was great.
Well, let me think about it, because we grew like, I can't give the numbers, but it was a really fast ramp. But the bus was, what was funny, like the reason we did that was, we looked at this is basically hacking South by Southwest, because, you know, we like, what are you going to do? How do you get attention? Yeah. You get a booth, everybody gets a booth. If you do food, everybody does. You throw a party, everybody throws a party. So we were like, the bus with this owl in it. We got on USA Today,
it was
Wall
amazing.
Street Journal,
it was everywhere,
and, you know, the Today Show. Everybody picked that thing, and that was a home run.
Did you take some of was any of that stuff inspired by the Constant Contact kind of like field education playbook, or was it separate?
A little bit. So the ambassadors was a little bit by that, but I also saw what I saw happen at the ambassador program when they tried monetizing it. You know, I'd left by that point. That to me didn't seem like it worked super good. Like, you know, this was all marketing and PR.
It's free. It's got to be free. It always gets
nobody's going to, like, you try to put somebody's, hold them accountable, they're not going to do it.
We should buy your beer and pizza and let you do it, and the faith is the brand.
Yeah. That's exactly right.
I mean, I think that's how we've thought about freemium that way here, which is like, freemium is our #1 marketing thing that we have. Yeah. Right? And it's huge. There's a million lessons from that. The Constant Contact email had the viral footer, right? Yeah. MailChimp sent by MailChimp. Yeah. Like, there's always some element of that. Yeah. All right, so that's Hootsuite. There's one free lesson. This is why I love doing this podcast, because you get that. What was then from Hootsuite we go to Vidyard.
Yeah, and before I could jump into the Vidyard thing, so
Sure.
we also knew that we had to move into the enterprise. So we were.
Oh yeah, that's important.
You know,
okay.
we were, basically, when we started monetizing, it was 100% pro, and so we're like, okay, we got to get this to an enterprise. So we start out with 5 reps, just dialing for dollars,
hunting,
completely leads. Hunting. No leads, because we had no marketing except for the community marketing. Right. So as we started building, marketing never drove more than 30% of our leads though. So I had BDRs that drove 25 to 30%, marketing drove 25 to 30, and the reps were required to do it. But by the end of 5 years, 70% of our revenue was enterprise. So we'd completely crossed that mark, and I segmented it going from everybody doing everything. Then I segmented it year 2 to corp, what we called corp and strat. So corp was inside sales and strat were field. And then the 3rd year we segmented even further. So under corp we had SME, mid-market, large enterprise, and then we had strat.
And you have marketing feed. Was there one marketing team that fed those different segments?
No. So this somewhat, and it's changed since I left.
Sure.
But I talked to a bunch of different people about this, for Envision and, Zendesk, SurveyMonkey, and a bunch of these guys. What I felt we had to have a business owner of enterprise and a business owner of the free pro product. So I had a VP of that online business. He was the first employee in that team. He built it up to a global team of 50. Yep. He's now CRO at Bench. Was great, phenomenal guy, Craig Riamoto. And then the enterprise had an enterprise leader that did that. And so marketing owned overall brand, overall PR, and all that stuff. But the online team did their own paid user, and they managed their web pages, so they could do their own testing. I'm like, that needs to be
so marketing was entirely focused on brand.
So brand, and also then they did the enterprise.
Right.
So as we moved into the enterprise, we got a great woman from Yammer that she came on, and she's now at Movable Ink, if you know those guys.
Cool.
But her whole job was just to move us from a freemium brand to an enterprise, and that's when Cutesy Owl moved to the faded out black and white owl, if you remember that.
Yeah.
And then enterprise, so then it became analyst relations, pitch decks, demos,
dinners,
dinners,
stuff.
events. Yeah, so it became much more. Now since I left, they've combined the marketing for both of them, which I didn't like. I wanted to have the separate, but it's up to them how they're going to do it.
Of course. It's tough. It's interesting. There's more companies that have that model now, which is, I think, like 10 years ago, even 5 years ago, you'd say, if you're going to sell to the enterprise, you're either free or enterprise.
Yeah.
Now there's so many businesses that combine them both. And I think of myself as a marketer, I'm probably not going to buy a product that I haven't tried.
That's exactly right. So old PQL is going to drive everything. I had a really fascinating story, and this is Dave Goldberg. He's passed away, but loved that guy. But he's
the CEO of SurveyMonkey.
He was the CEO of SurveyMonkey. So he called and he said, look, wanted to come up to Hootsuite, and at that point, just shows you the timing, how so much has changed. There were very, very few freemium to enterprise success stories. So he'd heard about what we were doing. We were partners. Could he spend a day? And I'm like, are you kidding me? This is amazing. So he came up, spent a day with him, and like I said, an amazing guy as a sidebar. And when he passed away tragically, it impacted me way more than I thought, because I was like, I really only spent 8 hours with this guy in one other meeting, and he would answer emails and stuff, but he was just such a nice guy, just such a nice guy. But he opened the kimono on everything on free and pro, and I'm like, do that, and I'll tell you everything on enterprise, what we did, and they end up doing it. They're big into enterprise now. I think they have, I don't know, a couple
What's one thing
hundred
that
reps.
In the free and pro thing from the SurveyMonkey said, what's one thing that you learned from that playbook?
So from the pro playbook from Dave, what I learned was we were not doing annual prepays for pro. We was just like month to month, because that was the game plan at that time.
It was a low price point.
Yeah, it was like we start at $5.99 a month, and so you ask why $5.99, and like that's just what they decided. We moved it to 15. So the thesis was everybody that's paying month to month, you'll have less churn.
If they go annual, and there's high churn in the small business segment.
Right, and people aren't going to do it. So he's like, absolutely not true. And then he told me his numbers for how many were. I'm like, are you kidding me? So we immediately flipped and started doing annual. He's like, you have to offer a discount. So we ended up like roughly, I remember off the top of my head, it was around 20% discount to do annual. And we did way more than half of our business on the pro came from annual.
Is there something like that happens mentally there? Is that just a perception thing? People perceive that they're getting like the same product for less.
Yeah. Yeah. So you see this discount.
Instead of $5.99, it's $3.99.
Yeah. And you know what the churn was?
Was it annual
cut our
bill?
churn in half.
Wow.
So it was like a monster win.
Just by pricing change.
Plus, you get all our prepaid, our advertising spend, right? You get it the very next month.
Yeah.
Like
and was it annual paid? Was it paid annually?
Yeah.
Like not monthly billing.
No, annual.
People just mentally said, "This looks cheaper. I'm gonna buy it."
We give the choice, right? You go, you want to do this or not? So that was
amazing.
By far the biggest takeaway I got from him. There's a few other things that the other one was actually it was Dave's suggestion. We were doing all of our paid user spend.
I'm writing
so
notes.
Dave was like, you know what you should do? You really should look at an agency for this. Because I'm like, no, our guys are great. And he's like, no. And our spend was about the same as theirs for the paid user.
Yeah.
So, but I used the same agency that he did, and it actually was a huge win for us. So I think we did it for 6 months or so, pulled everything out of it. And I'm actually going through the same process right now at a current company. We're just outsourcing to an agency just to get the knowledge.
This is really cool. We could stop here, but I want to go to next. Let's maybe do 2-3 minutes before we wrap up on like the last part of your journey and then what you're doing today.
Perfect. So then the last one it was Hootsuite was a phenomenal run. Some of the lessons there, culture. Like culture eats strategy for breakfast, as they say. I think Ben Chestnut said that when he was interviewed about Constant Contact.
Yep.
So that was a huge one. The model, really having a model that lines up, having a purpose that matters, I think really makes a difference. And I was always, to me, that was always super important at Hootsuite, that everybody knew what they were doing was meaningful. Like we were transforming, how people communicated, and our purpose statement became. We help transform messages into meaningful relationships, and what that really meant to us was, if you look at social, because we were like, it manages social. Like we weren't social, we were just managing social. But what did we want? And if you looked out in the world and you saw messages going out, if you could see them, social messages going out, it just this cacophony of noise. So we're like, what do we want customers out of this? We want them to be able to basically pull all that noise, manage it, and I can start having a relationship with you, David, right?
Because it became more of a sales channel, more of a support channel, right?
Yeah, and we got to know that person. So that became really, really, really big for me, and I think it was a really, really good win. And and also the second learning I got was from Constant Contact was move international faster. It was not late, but it was a slow move. So I watched this and I'm like, you know what? Sometimes you just got to move. So we made the decision. So I joined in 2011. We went into EMEA 2012 with just a small office. Fast forward 3 years later, we had 160 people there, 10 in Paris, 5 in Hamburg, and we had a global support center for EMEA and Bucharest, and 35% of our revenue coming from EMEA.
That's amazing.
And then same thing with APAC. We had a Singapore headquarters.
You probably had to make that decision without a ton of data. You just felt
no, we had to go. I looked at it. My rule of thumb was, am I getting what's the percentage of free signups, or it could be revenue, like a lot of companies would say, pick a number, right? I always looked at it like I needed, if I was getting 10% of my signups from a market,
it's time to go.
It's time to go.
Yeah.
And that's free. You could also do it from an ARR perspective. Some people say $1 million. We did it a little bit less than $1 million when we went in.
Yeah.
It was such a game changer that we did that, and it put us so far ahead of the competition for a while for that. Yeah, so that was the Hootsuite thing. Yeah.
Do you have any Vidyard lessons?
Yeah, I do. I mean, that was actually really interesting. Great company, great space. So I spent 5 years commuting from Maine to Vancouver.
Yeah.
So that's non-sustainable.
5 years?
5 years, man. So I can't keep doing this.
Commuting from Maine to Vancouver.
Not close, man.
Those two things are not close. Is there a train or something?
It was brutal.
Yeah.
And it was never supposed to be that long, right? It was supposed to be faster, and still hasn't sold. And then Vidyard, I'd actually got to know these guys. The same investor that led the round in Vidyard led Hootsuite, led around in Vidyard. Mm-hmm. He was at Omer's, and then ironically, the role I have right now, he took this role as chief commercial officer at Intellex, and then tragically passed away. Yep. So I'm just temporarily helping him, hopefully helping the company out. But Vidyard lessons were, we were selling a sort of a niche within a niche with a video for marketing. Great product. But as we kind of looked at this, I'm like, how do we break this open? So we were an enterprise product. Yeah. So
you go from the other end, right?
I go from the other end.
Okay, we're already doing the enterprise thing. Steve Johnson's coming in with the freemium.
That's it. They weren't too happy about it. I don't say the board loved that initially, but to me it was a no-brainer. Like we had to come up with something that other people could use and actually use it really, really easily. And we had a failed start at it initially. We tried doing it on our original platform. I think the first name of the product was Engage, and it was built on our enterprise platform. It just bombed. So, kudos to the founders and the board. They let us go do another try, and that was Go Video, and that was a huge success.
Huge. Yeah.
So that's been really good. A lot of companies, I think you guys are integrated and using it.
Use it 5-10 times a day, at least. Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. So that went from just a trial of free to now let's add enterprise. I think it was 3 months later we added enterprise. And that became, I can't say the numbers, but it became a really big piece of the enterprise business for Vidyard, and after 2 years there, I'm like, my mission is done. You guys are doing great. They have a great team. They're off and running, and then that was that story. But yeah, that's probably the big lesson there. Not that the freemium works everywhere. I think freemium. Just talking to another executive in Boston here earlier this morning, and freemium to me is, if you have a vertical, if you're a niche, it doesn't make any sense, right? You got a limited market, but if you have a wide horizontal market, the freemium is a phenomenal way to get customers.
Well, and just if you think about where we are with software today, like I can find anything out without talking to sales reps, or nobody has to turn anything on in my account or give me a license or something anymore. And so I think just where the world is going, people want to try before they buy. Yeah. And people are going to win on the product experience. And so if you can get people into your product, and then they talk to sales, which is like such a different change from 10, 20 years ago, which is like talk to sales, then buy, then get you in the product. Now let's get you in the product, then talk to sales, then buy.
100%.
Yeah.
I think probably another story I would say too is like, any company that really goes big, it takes that a founder with sort of what I call a reality distortion zone, right? They think that I brought Ryan to meet Gail at Constant Contact. Yeah. And you could tell they were like 20 people, and Ryan thought they were much bigger and better than Constant, publicly traded company, right? He just had this head about like, we're going to be really big, and we all had that same attitude. Like, it's like, why play small ball? We're gonna be.
I think in order to lead a company, you have to have that mentality, right? Yeah. You're not in this to build something small, and you think your thing is gonna change the world. And
that's exactly right. Yeah. That was a huge lesson.
All right,
creativity.
This was great. We did about 30 minutes. We could have gone forever.
Man, it's awesome. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Great being here.
All right.
See ya.